All right, welcome to episode. This is actually our 120th episode. It took us 120 episodes of God Mode Unlocked to bring our first guest on, but we're super excited to have this guest because we have Dave Oshry from New Blood Interactive and Rocketworks as well on the show with us today. So thanks for joining us all the way from New Zealand. That's
Wow.
Hey,
yeah.
I did finish pooping. Thank you, Epic. I got chat up. Yeah, thanks. Cool to be here. All good.
What's the situation like in New Zealand right now? Like, you know, COVID wise.
It's normal. It's been back to normal for since May. Yeah, so like we locked down super early in March. I got home from the States like 2 days before lockdown, right before Doom Eternal came out. And then we locked down for like 6 weeks and mostly got rid of COVID. We had a couple of flare-ups, but we've mostly been like back to normal with 0 cases for most of the year. So
that's
nothing.
Crazy.
It's basically been life's been normal here.
That's awesome.
Are you originally from New Zealand or from the States?
No,
I don't hear an accent. Yeah,
No,
I don't hear an accent there. So
I'm from New York, and I lived in LA for the last 10 years, and now I live in Dunedin, New Zealand, South Island.
Where are you from? The city, or where in New York are you from?
Long Island.
Okay.
Long Island, Strong Island. But I mean, I lived all over the tri-state area and the 5 boroughs. Worked in Queens, went to school in the city. You know, New York stuff.
Yeah, we're from the southern tier, so not quite the city, but same state at least. So I guess if you just want to start us off, just, you know, we established where you're from, like what got you into gaming, and then, you know, how did you break into the industry? Like, what was your entrance into the actual, like, working in the industry?
I've been gaming forever, you know. I remember I used to play, you know, Nintendo with my dad and stuff when I was a kid, and then I got into PC games young, when consoles after Nintendo and Sega. It was you know, it was most. I remember when I first played Wolf 3D at my friend's house on his 386 in black and white, and I was like, yeah, this is it. And from there, you know, it was obsessed with Quake and 3D, and then I figured out, you know, Fallout and Baldur's Gate and all that stuff. So I was a big PC gamer as a kid in the 90s. You know, like first, how did I get into gaming? I was a blogger and games jar journalist back in like 2010, 2011. I started blogging for a site called Rip10, and I became an editor. Then I freelanced for a bit. I wrote for PC Gamer, VG247, Kotaku, Joystick, if you remember them.
Yeah.
You can name it. I had bylines like everywhere. But I had a marketing degree, and I had started talking to this dude, Fred Schreiber, who was trying to remake Duke Nukem 3D in Unreal Engine. And he ended up getting a chance to work on an actual project and asked if I wanted to come on and help do their like marketing and social, because I was pretty popular. And I was like, yeah, sure. And that ended up being the Rise of the Triad reboot, which we ended up doing. So I made the jump from like writing about video games to doing marketing and PR for video games. And then that snowballed into, you know, starting my own company with my friends. And then 2020, New Blood's where it's at now. And I work down here at Rocketworks on some indie and AAA stuff. And yeah, I'm working on like 13 games across 2 studios and 2 continents right now, but I make it work. It's been a weird 10 years.
How does you quickly glossed over, you know, like oh, I started my own company with my friends, you know, like how did you make that jump? Like, what made you be like, all right, I'm going to be the one to start a gaming company? Like, did you have like a plan, like this is what we're gonna do, or like how did that?
No, we were just kind of burnt out after working on Triad and stuff with like a big team, and VR was kicking up at the time. It was like 2013, 2014, you know, when you had the big boxy Rift DK1s, and we wanted to make a VR game. So me and my buddy Aaron and Craig, who you might know as the Craigasm emote, as our programmer, started our own company based off the forum that we all, you know, hung out at, called Hot Blooded Games, which was Craig's forum. And we Hot Blooded Gaming, and we called the company Hot Blooded Games. And then me and Aaron eventually decided to call it New Blood because we had all these new people coming in. We've got all this new blood, and we were like, "Oh, that's a really cool name for the company. Let's do that." And we tried working on a few VR things. We were working on a VR boxing game that was pretty cool. We got it in front of Oculus, and like Palmer Luckey played it, and we were almost at like GDC 2014 with like Eve Valkyrie and shit with our VR boxing game, but we never finished it. And then we tried doing a bunch of stuff that never really worked out. Aaron left to go work at RocketWorks, which is ends up coming full circle. Um, with Dean Hall, and then um, you know, 2014, 2015. I'm also working at Gunner. I was the gaming glasses. I was their VP of Biz Dev for a hot minute for like 2 years. So New Blood's kind of not really doing much. And then we pick up Super Galaxy Squadron because we were looking for a pixel artist, and that becomes a thing. And then next thing you know, I meet David, the Dusk dude, and that happens. Then the medieval guys happen, and Ultrakill, then Faith, and Gloomwood, and just all kinds of happen. Just kind of snowballs. Shit just, working with your friends, and then your friends have friends, and they've got games, and it's next thing you know, you're working on like 10 games.
I was gonna ask that. Like, what is your because New Blood to me at least, and I see you've tweeted this a bunch of times, like clear, consistent branding. Like you've brought that up a bunch of times, and like New Blood definitely has a brand. So like, as head honcho of New Blood, you've mentioned you picked up a bunch of games. I think Dusk really blew you guys up, but then you picked up subsequent. Like I love Ultrakill. It was one of the better games that I played this year. But there's a definite like style. So do you
Game cult.
do you like are you actively like searching for these games, like, okay, this one fits our bill, or are they coming to you? Like, what's that process?
Yeah, no, we're not a typical publisher. I don't take pitches. We want to work on less games. It's all just our friends and friends of friends, and wanting to just really having a really hard time saying no to really cool shit. So like, Dusk happened, and a medieval happened, and then Hakata was asking us to work with him on Ultrakill for a long time. Where did Saul go? So that's not where you go, buddy. And it took like a year. Oh, sorry, is my mic low?
I turned it up, and you
Okay,
just
cool.
went back up too. So
Okay. It's you got to be a good fit, right? Everybody at New Blood kind of works on everything else at New Blood. We're not just a publisher where it's like, give us your game when it's 90% finished, and we'll put out some fire tweets, and hopefully it'll sell well. Like we build games. We do everything pretty much internally. So if you join, if we bring you in, it's got to be, you got to be part of the family. Everybody's just sharing their knowledge. We just work out of one Discord and stuff like that. But like, Dylan worked on Dusk with David, and that after that was done, David was like, "Hey, Dylan's been working on this game Gloomwood for like a really long time. Do you think the New Blood guys would be interested in like getting in there and really building it out with him?" And I played it, and I talked to Dylan, and I immediately I loved it. I remember I touched the first doorknob, and it felt just like Thief 1, and I was like, "Oh man, this guy's special. He gets those old Thief games in a way that David got the old retro shooters." And with Hakata, like I remember when on the surface the guys didn't really get Ultrakill. They're like, sure, it's like a retro shooter with some cool movement mechanics and a Devil May Cry score meter, but like, what is it beyond that? And I remember I got to like level 3 or level 4, and there's no enemies, and the Claire de Lune just starts playing, and you start picking up things and reading books, and there's a skull in your hand, and I'm like, wait a second, there's something a lot deeper here than just moving fast and shooting, which I think all of our games, at least the ones we're known for, I like to be subversive, right? Come for the fast-paced action, stay to have your mind blown out the back of your skull. Open your mouth, stick out your tongue, give me about 12 hours of your time, lose your mind a little bit. I like having that kind of a vibe with our games. And then with stuff like, and again with Faith, I wanted to really get away from retro shooters. I still do. It's hard. Every time I try to get out, they pull me back in. But I want to definitely do more horror stuff because we've got a lot of horror chops in the company and horror fans. And again, Erdorf Mason was a friend of David's, and he's like, "Hey, have you heard of Faith?" And I'm like, "I knew Faith was a thing. I knew it was a big deal. All the big YouTubers have played it. I knew Mortis was a meme. I knew it was really popular, but I was like, I hadn't played it yet." So I finally sat down and I played it, and I was like, "Holy shit, this guy's a genius." And I started talking with him, and I was like, "Hey, would you like us to turn Faith into like a full-blown 3-chapter continuous game, and put it on a new engine and put it on Switch and consoles, and really make Faith into like a full, complete game?" And he's like, "Yeah, that sounds awesome." I was like, "Cool, welcome aboard." And he's also he's a a professional animator too, as you can tell by the rotoscope stuff he does in Faith. So everybody we bring in, I want them to have multiple skills. Like Eardorf's an animator, but also he works on Faith. Hakita does lots of stuff, but he's also a composer. We've got a dev support team that helps the guys out. We credit one or two of the main devs on all the games, but New Blood also has a full-time QA and dev support team that helps out across all the games. 5, 6, 7, 8 people, and they're really the unsung heroes. You might only see like David Szymanski or Johnny Szymanski or Hakata or Dylan Rogers, but there's 3 or 4 or 5 people behind each of them helping working on the games. But we like to credit the guys to give them their shine. At one point, David was like, "Oh, let's just say, a New Blood game by New Blood, by New Blood." And I was like, let's make everybody popular, right? And that's really worked out, especially on social. You see like David and Nerdorf and me and Dylan, and everybody's like, we've all people follow all the different developers for their own takes and their own personalities. And the rising tide raises all ships. I think the cool thing about New Blood is when one thing does well, everything does well. If one meme goes viral and one of our games starts selling, all of our games start selling. And like I said, clear, consistent branding. I like to be consistent across all of our things, and people copy that a lot, even if it's the small stuff like our Steam capsule art or our posters and shit like that. I want people to know that a New Blood game is a New Blood game without having to do any research, right? You see it immediately, you see the black and red, or you see the poster art and you go, "Oh, that's a New Blood game." And what people have said is, that's a symbol of quality. They know if we make something or if our name's on something, they know that game's going to get good. If they see it in early access, they know that game's going to get finished and come out. And
the
that's
Nintendo seal of quality has been replaced by the New Blood seal of quality.
Somebody actually did that. They photoshopped over the Nintendo seal of approval with the New Blood logo. That was pretty cool. But yeah, so and that's something you can't buy. That's something you just got to work at every day by building good games and building a good community around those games. So I'm proud of that, and that's kind of just. And there was no plan. Like 5 years ago, I wasn't like, this is the way I want to run a company and start it with my friends. Shit just kind of happened, and if you kind of figure it out as you're going along, and we're still learning stuff. Some of our projects haven't worked out. We've had to part ways with some of our developers. Tonight We Riot, Maximum Action, sometimes shit doesn't work out, and they just it's not a good fit. But we keep learning and we keep growing, and everything we do is better than the last thing we do. Both in terms of the way we build our games, the pipeline, the reception, the sales. So we're doing something right. Especially because it's really fun also because when you work with the same group of people, like the stuff we learned from Dusk we apply to Gloomwood, and the stuff we're learning from Gloomwood will apply to David and Dylan's next game, whether that's Dusk 2 or something else. And the stuff
wasn't it Rats for Breakfast?
Yeah, Rats for Breakfast is on hold.
Okay.
David's really bad at finishing stuff, especially he was really bad at finishing Dusk. I had to push him really hard to finish the fucking game. David, he's one of those guys who likes to start projects, but it's it's hard to, once you get past that initial making games, is like, oh boy, exciting, new thing, and then it's like, oh fuck, I gotta do all
that work.
And then it's always fun starting new projects. But David's been making some smaller stuff. He's been doing some Dread XP stuff. He made a Squirrel Stapler.
Something with horses. I can't remember the other.
Yeah,
horse.
Fun little the Pony Factory.
Yeah.
David's got a really twisted sense of humor. Oh, Star's here from Dread XP. Hey, Star.
There she is.
So yeah, it's fun. I like to let the guys work on side projects and stuff. I don't want to just chain them to New Blood. We're not like a record label that's like, hey, you can't work on anybody else. I'm a big believer in the fact that side projects keep the creative juices flowing, as long as it's not taken away from your work on the New Blood games that we're trying to get out on the schedule we're trying to keep. I definitely encourage all the guys to do like side projects and stuff, because otherwise you get really in the weeds, you get really stagnant, and your game suffers for it because you get bored. So if you got to take a few weeks to go do a game jam or make an album or just fuck off and do some drugs, I'm about it.
So you make it sound way easier than it is. I think like you make it sound like it's been that's great from your guys' perspective. It sounds like it's been a very progressive process. So, but there's a lot of people, as you know better than anyone, probably that really have struggled to. They want to break into the industry, they don't know how to break into the industry. For those people, what would you say to them? Because obviously your story's pretty unique, and has
I
been a
don't know.
big
I mean,
success.
I like to say I work very hard to make it look like I don't work very hard. Um, I would say don't go do something else. Go work retail. Go live with your mom. Making games sucks.
You heard
I
it
don't
here
know.
first, guys.
I would honestly say what I like to tell kids and stuff is find what you're good at, and do that. You can't be a jack of all trades. You can't be good at everything. Don't be a generalist. Pick. It's like when you go to college, which is also a waste of fucking time. We were lied to so bad in the '90s. Go to college, get a job. I don't even know where my degree is. Um, Find what you're good at. It's like if you have, when you go to college and you pick a major. Um, pick if you're an animator, pick the kind of animation you want to do. If you're a 3D modeler, pick the kind of models you want to make, or the things you want to do, or the style that you're good at. Find a style and be good at that style. um if you're a programmer, pick a language or an engine that you're really good with and get really good at it. um it's and then find people that are looking for that. I mean, we're unique in the fact that we're just a bunch of friends who do what we want. We're not a company that, we're not hiring. We don't do that stuff. Rocketworks is, though. So if you want to come work on big, crazy survival games, rocketworks.com. You can go work on Icarus in Auckland, New Zealand. But yeah, I would say find what you're good at and specialize, or just don't go do something else. Working in games sucks. We are overworked and underpaid. And if people like your games, it's cool. And if they don't, they yell and scream at you on Twitter and call you a piece of shit. Luckily, we don't get a lot of
That's
that
pretty
because our
much the
games are
world in
cool.
2020, though.
Yeah,
I
Yeah.
mean,
we're
that's
cool, and our players are cool.
Matt. You were gonna say something a minute ago. Were you about to?
Well, yeah. I mean, I just wanted to ask: was there anything when you made that transition from writing to actually, publishing? Was there anything that you didn't foresee, didn't imagine? What?
Oh yeah, I didn't know what anything cost, man. So I had some money. So I was a used car salesman before I started blogging. I was just blogging about games for fun to get free video games. I was playing World of Warcraft. Basically, I was doing nothing but working out and playing World of Warcraft in 2008. Um, I think a lot of us were. I would go to work and I would come home. I would raid. That was basically my life. And in between, I would do P90X.
Sounds
It was a real,
familiar.
That's right.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was a real 2008 time. And when I had some money saved up, and when I got into it with Fred, I mean, he said, "Oh, Rise of the Triad, this reboot will cost us, we could do this whole game for $100,000." It ended up costing like 3 times that. I went broke. All his other friends who threw money in. He has a rich poker player friend who threw a bunch of money in. The game ended up costing like $500,000 and barely made its money back. But like, nowadays I make games, we make games way cheaper and make our developers like tons of money doing it because I know where to spend it and what we're doing. I didn't know what the fuck I was doing in 2012. Someone would say, "Oh, we need this much money for a program." I'd be like, "Okay, here, take it." I guess that's what it costs. Like I didn't know. I didn't. We built a booth for QuakeCon. I spent like $30,000 on this tiny booth. I didn't know. And then like 2 years later, I was building booths with like shit we brought from home for like $1,000, and it would be twice as big. Like I didn't know. The only way you only get experience by experiencing stuff. You got to go through it. Like nobody teaches you how to be a video game producer. You just got to go through a bunch of game dev cycles. You can watch all the GDC talks and read all the articles you want, but that won't teach you about making games with people. The only way to do that is to make games with people. um so yeah. That's I didn't know shit back then. Even now, like the Rocketworks guys, Dean's like, "Oh man, Dave, you're like the master of early access." 3 years ago, I wasn't. I didn't. I thought early access was bullshit 3 years ago. I'm like, "Oh, we don't need to do that. We'll just release games when they're finished." And now we're known for like releasing perfect early access games and using early access the right way. But 3 years ago, I wouldn't have told you that. Times change. You learn. Nothing is absolute. So as long as we keep learning and getting better and learning from what we did, the last thing we did, I think we're going to keep getting bigger and better. And I think that's good lessons to apply to life.
That's Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, Matt. Because something that Matt and I talk about, like normally our normal episodes of the podcast, we talk about gaming news and moves within the industry and stuff. And we've talked a lot about this, like a subscription model that's getting super popular.
Oh
Whether
yeah,
it's Game
Game Pass.
Pass or there's like 15 other competitors out there. Amazon's got their own that's coming with Luna, or it's technically already available. It's a whole bunch of prominent ones. And I wanted to ask you, as a as on the more indie side, like, do you think that as those grow, do you think that more games are going to be sitting there forced to make a decision, like, I have to be on one of these services or I'm going to be hurting, or like, where do you see that going?
Yeah, I've spoken about this a lot. I think we're going right where music went 5, 10 years ago. We're going to the all streaming, all subscription future where you got your Spotify, you got your iTunes of games, and either, we just get paid per hours people play our games. And we got to go on tour and sell merch to survive, just like bands did. And all our money's going to come from selling vinyls and toys and shit. We're going there with the Netflix of games. I mean, Game Pass is already there, right? I mean, it's the best fucking deal in the world.
Yeah.
I bought a
Absolutely.
Series S and I got Game Pass. I've got like 40 games on my new Xbox already. I haven't paid for any of them except Yakuza because it was new and it's worth it. Yakuza Like a Dragon rules.
Matt will love
Um,
that.
yeah,
Yep.
I mean,
Yep.
so it's a double-edged sword. Like it's really great for consumers, but it's really shit for developers. Kind of just how like Spotify is really great for music fans and really shitty for artists who get paid like 1 cent per 1,000 hours their games are streamed. The difference is, people on Game Pass and stuff get big deals. Microsoft pays big money for those deals, but what if you're not on there?
Yeah.
What happens to the good old fashioned people who are just trying to sell a 20, 30, $40 game? I don't think Steam's going away anytime soon. But what happens when Steam starts making a subscription service? I don't know why they wouldn't, and just curate that with the biggest, best games on Steam. Pay $20 a month and get the top 10 games on Steam every month. I'd buy it. So
I
it's
personally think Valve has been on, like, they've been working from home for the past 10 years. I think there's nobody in that building anymore. I don't know
no.
what they're doing over there. That's
I've been
why.
there. It was
Asleep at the wheel.
I went to the old office. It was mostly support. They had like a whole giant room of just desks of people doing support stuff, which is funny because people say Valve has shitty tech support. I saw like 100 people there just doing tech support. They moved to a new office. I haven't seen it, but I heard it's very nice. But yeah, they've been work from home forever, which is cool. They actually respond to emails a lot faster this year, I noticed. But yeah, I think that's where we're going. I think, everybody in music said the same thing. Oh no, albums aren't going anywhere, CDs aren't going anywhere, people are still going to buy people are still going to buy full albums on iTunes and
Nope.
Spotify and stuff. It's like, no, they fucking don't. You pay for premium and you listen to whatever you want. Which again, it's great for consumers. But it sucks for the people who create stuff. But I think it's inevitable, and we're just gonna have to adapt. For New Blood, at least, I'm leaning in more to the physical stuff. I want to make vinyls, toys. We just started making posters. We've been selling T-shirts. I mean, we've been selling. The last 6 months, we sold like $50,000 worth of merch, and I'm like, we could double that if we gave a shit.
Mhm.
We could turn that into a whole little side business. And then figured out what we're doing with our games. I've been talking to Xbox about getting stuff on Game Pass and stuff like that because that's where you have to be these days. And obviously we still use Steam for early access and to build our games and to release our games. We're doing stuff. Switch is still the fucking coolest thing ever. Can't wait to finally get Dusk out on Switch and our other games on Switch. I think I think Nintendo can probably do the same thing too. I mean, they charge for their online for to get the SNES and Nintendo games. I pay for it. So I think our all streaming, all subscription future is an inevitability, and we need to prepare for it and adapt.
Those are all good thoughts. Like, we obsess on the podcast over who is aligning with who. Like, what company
Mhm.
is signed, what publisher has signed a deal with which subscription service,
Yeah,
because
and
they're going to start
everybody's
picking each
getting
other off very quickly.
yeah,
Like, we're
everybody's
exclusive
getting
to
a
them.
Yep.
Yeah, the acquisitions are crazy, especially with Microsoft and Sony and stuff, and then Microsoft buying all the Fig founders, and then fucking Bethesda, and Didn't they just buy Platinum or something too? They bought a
They,
big
they,
Japanese developer.
Microsoft has it
There's
at
rumors,
least.
right?
Yeah, they
Yeah, there's rumors that they're going to. I don't think they have.
Yeah.
That would be nuts, because well, Xbox needs to penetrate the Japanese market.
Yeah.
It's all, I mean, it's going to be hard because Sony, like it's the nationalism is strong.
Yeah.
Like Japanese people playing on an Xbox, no. Uh, it's very hard, but they've had a really hard time with that market, and they need to do more, Japanese and Eastern games in order to do that for sure. I mean, having shit like Yakuza on Game Pass is big. Um, Having stuff be exclusive is big. I think Yakuza's exclusive to Xbox Series X and S 7 timed. It's not on PS5 yet, which is crazy for a Yakuza game, for a Sega game. So it's Microsoft's making big moves. Sony obviously is also making big moves. I mean, their first party stuff is untouchable. New God of War. Uh, they're gonna keep doing what they do. Um, but it's an interesting time for sure. If someone wants to acquire us, I will sell the fuck out immediately, and I will tell people we did it for the money and fuck off to an island, and you will never hear from me again. You can get Dusk 2 or 3 or whatever the hell the new company wants to make. I don't care. Me and my money and my jet skis and my sailboat will not give a fuck.
I saw you.
Haven't you already done that? I mean,
no, I mean I fucked off to New
is an
Zealand.
island.
Yeah, well, fair. No, I mean it is quite nice down here, and I do feel very blessed and lucky that I ended up in New Zealand during COVID times instead of being in LA where I was. But yeah, so we'll see what happens. But no, I don't plan on selling out anytime soon. But I would.
Somebody get Phil Spencer on. Somebody Zoom call Phil real quick, and we'll see if we can break a deal real quick. Yeah, we'll get that taken care of. Maybe next time we have you on the show, we'll bring Phil on and see what we can.
We're trying to get him.
We'll say, Phil, we need 60 minutes.
We haven't heard back yet.
So you got 60 minutes. We'll make a deal within the next 60 minutes live.
Sure.
All right. So one thing that I don't want to pronounce his last name. Andrew H did the music for Dusk.
Holschult. Now he's working on Doom. Yeah.
He worked on Doom. That's what made me think here. Like, how was it to see like somebody that you worked with go on to work for an absolutely legendary gaming franchise? And then my follow up is what are your dream collabs? Like who would you like to bring under New Blood that?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, as Andrew's friend and someone who worked with him as his producer for many years, it's the coolest thing ever. I mean, I always told him this would happen. I'm like, dude, you're gonna work at it on Doom one day. He's like, oh, man, if it happens, it happens. I'm like, no, that is your destiny. You are from Dallas, Texas. You love Doom. You're a metalhead. You're a composer. It is your destiny to work at id Software on Doom. And he didn't believe me, and I'm like, ha, I told you, motherfucker. But it's just hard. It's hard work, man. He put in the work. And he's awesome. I remember when we used to work on Rise of the Triad and early Dusk stuff. I had so many crits for his music, man. We'd go back and forth and argue about shit. And nowadays, when he just drops stuff for Medieval or the latest Dusk stuff for Doom, and he plays it, I'm like, it's perfect. Nothing, no crits, bro. You are above and beyond what I could critique as your producer. You have grown that much. He deserves all his success. It's been really cool to see, as his friend, just being like, hey, that's my boy. Yeah, so nobody deserves it more. And David too, David Levy, who from Red vs. Blue, Rooster Teeth, who he also working with on the Ancient Gods. People always forget that there's two guys working.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Because Andrew's a big popular boy. But yeah, that's been super cool to see. Collabs. I mean, I don't know. I mean, just New Blood in general. Everybody, we all just, our dream is to like stop working on like 6 projects at once and all come together to work on one thing. But it's hard because we keep bringing in new things. Like we brought in Fallen Aces mostly because we really like Trey. He's another guy who's from rural PA just like David and Johnny and Christian. We've got a lot of people in rural Pennsylvania where Dusk takes place. And he's a great illustrator, right? Fallen Aces with that comic book style. We wanted to bring him in to be kind of a concept artist and illustrator for Gloomwood. So we're like, fuck it, we'll work on your game too. Plus, Fallen Aces gives off big action Doom vibes, and we played it, and the code was good. We were like, fuck it, I guess we'll do one more retro shooter. It's always gonna be one more. Plus, with the 13 reboot being so shit, somebody has to make a good comic book.
In fairness, the
yes.
original wasn't that good.
It was story wise, it was
but,
great. Yeah, I mean, I was playing it the other day when the reboot came out, and I got it loaded up in ultra wide and was playing it, and it still looks amazing because that style is timeless. It never played great.
Did they use Adam West's voice again, or did they replace that in the reboot or remake or whatever they called it?
I didn't even open the reboot.
Okay.
I didn't even play it. But yeah, Dream Collabs. I mean, it'd be cool. We got to get Nicolas Cage in one of our games.
That would be sick.
Cool. Some voice. Yeah, there's definitely some Dream Collabs on voice actors and stuff like that, and music. I'd love to do more licensed music. I remember I tried to get some for Dusk, and Andrew was like, "No, man, I want this to be my soundtrack." I'm like, "Oh, can we please use just like a little bit of Testament and Ministry and Slayer?" He's like, "No." I was like, "Okay." Not that I could get them anyway. Oh, I was pretty close to getting some Megadeth stuff. But getting licensed music is hard. I would like to have enough money to just, buy really famous songs to put in our really small games. Dream collabs with developers? Not really. It'd be cool to have some of our, heroes, like contribute. Like obviously, like Romero, that would be super cool to have him do some level design or something. I don't know. Yeah, nothing we can really think of. I mean, we've been talking about making a car combat game, and everybody's like, "Oh, you should get Jaffe involved because he really likes your games." And I'm like, there can really only be one loudmouth crazy Jew running around this company. We can't have two. We can't. Me and Jaffe together would just be like a fucking explosion.
I could see that. Yeah,
of fucking profanity of who can say fuck more in front of a camera.
I was laughing the other day. Do you remember like all the this is super obscure. Nobody else is gonna remember this besides the three of us probably. There was like all this like these issues between David Jaffe and Olivia Munn. There was like an ongoing feud because like there was like a red carpet.
Everybody hates Olivia Munn, right?
Well, everybody hates David Jaffe too.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, I remember like everybody at G4 was like, "Oh, she sucks," and everybody at Sony was like, "Yeah, nobody that's worked with those people likes them very much." So the fact I don't remember that they had a feud, but that's pretty great.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of one of those things I think where sometimes with Jaffe, because Twisted Metal, like God of War, this happens a lot in a lot of different mediums. You have these people who are geniuses at a certain thing, and like everybody else cannot connect with them, or they're so passionate about their vision that I think they drive people away because they're so dead set on, this is what I need you to do this. I need you to do this. And that's, I know nothing about David Jaffe personally, so I'm not accusing him of that. But I see that you see that a lot in music, and people get kind of run out because people are like, they're genius, but they're too difficult to work with.
Yeah, Kanye.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's hard. Like if you guys back from, back in who were popular in the 90s or 2000s, guys like, Jaffe or Cliffy or even what's going on with George Broussard today, if you've taken a look at Twitter.
I did see that.
Yeah, it's weird once, the guys who did stuff try to apply those lessons to what's going on today. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Some people have staying power. Some people retire, and some people just end up on Twitter, yelling into the void as they get older. Some people stream. Jaffe likes to stream our game.
Yeah, he does. Star says that Jaffe's a really nice guy when you get to know him. She's never worked with him, but he's a really nice guy.
He seems nice. We've talked a couple times, but he seems like a cool dude. And he lives in San Diego. I used to live in San Diego, so it's can't be all bad. But yeah, we the guys keep talking about a car combat game, and I historically do not like car combat. I think it's a dead genre. But if there's one thing we know, that if we start working on a car combat game, then 10 other companies are going to start working on one immediately after. So maybe we should just start a trend.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's room for it. I actually, Matt and I have criticized Sony before for letting their multiplayer franchises go dormant. There's so many, like
It's
Twisted
so
Metal,
hard, man.
SOCOM.
Multiplayers, getting players is so hard. You can make a great game, but I mean, the players are all being soaked up by, fucking Fortnite and PUBG and Overwatch and Destiny and, Among Us now is taking all the casuals and, there's no fucking players out there for just straight up multiplayer games,
Is that
especially ones that aren't sticky and don't have, all kinds of progression and microtransactions and leveling tied to them. Like if you just made a straight up car combat multiplayer game, you're not going to have any players. So if we did one, it would have to have a strong campaign like we're good at. And maybe not in the multiplayer, just kind of be like versus and stuff. There've been a bunch. They've made new Carmageddons. They've been a bunch of indie car combat games. None of them have done shit.
there was a Car Combat BR that came out like a year ago, and they gave
Yeah.
me like my own in-game item that the people could use, and
Yeah.
it shut down within like 3 months. Just like nobody, there was nobody there. It was
Oh.
unique, but yeah, nothing.
Yeah, it's hard, man. Even like with a game like we've got Unfortunate Spacemen, which is doing pretty good. It's got between 500 to 1,000 players every day, and then like up to 1,500 on the weekends, which is a lot for a indie multiplayer game. But that's a free-to-play game that's pretty popular from a popular company. Saul, what are you doing? Um, and even that like doesn't have a ton of players, even with the popularity of stuff like Among Us now. So it's hard, man. So I don't blame Sony. I mean, when you can invest your money into making some killer single player stuff like Last of Us or Ghost of Tsushima or God of War, which is going to sell 10 million copies, and then you don't have to keep it as a live service. That's what I'd rather. I mean, I'm more of a single player guy anyway. So, um, yeah, I mean, the last Twisted Metal also did jack shit. So, I mean, I
Mhm.
don't, I mean, I'm sure it'll come back one day. Everything always comes around. But I mean,
When Microsoft
even
buys them.
yeah, I mean, even stuff like Titanfall 2, arguably the greatest fucking shooter ever, was DOA. Call of Duty's cannibalizing itself now every year by running its live service right up until its next game. There's still people
Yeah.
playing Modern Warfare while they're releasing Black Ops. It's like, hello? Um, that's one thing when people ask me, when they don't make a multiplayer game, don't make a multiplayer PvP game. Co-op, yes, co-op sells, and co-op, everybody's got one friend, but do not make an indie multiplayer game. It doesn't matter how good it is, you will not have players. All the reviews will be dead game within a month, and that you do not want that. You are not coming back from dead game.
Yeah.
I mean, some people do. For Honor did. Siege famously did. Siege went from basically being dead to one of the most played games of all time. That's one of the biggest in the world now.
A ton of money
Uh,
from Ubisoft, though.
yeah,
On
it
that
helps. It
regard.
Yeah.
helps to have
Yeah.
Ubisoft.
Pumping it in.
You open the billions of dollars that they've got. And then stuff like Final Fantasy 14, obviously, which launched and was garbage, and then they rebuilt the whole game, and now it's like I think it's the #1 MMO in the world. Final Fantasy 14. Same thing. Elder Scrolls Online launched and it was not good, and they basically redid it, and now it's like the #3 MMO. I think WoW I think has dropped to like 4 or 5 or something like that. But it probably shot back up because of the new expansion. But yeah, David said yesterday multiplayer in Dusk he's not a fan of. I mean, listen, if we promised multiplayer in Dusk, but if we didn't do Dusk World, the game would have been finished sooner. It would have been on, everything with Dusk would have happened a year to 6 months earlier if we didn't decide to do the multiplayer that nobody plays. I mean, I'm glad Dusk World exists. We're probably going to make it free to play next year, just like a standalone thing, just because why not? And it will serve as like a cool advertisement for Dusk. Maybe we can monetize a little bit with some bullshit like you pay $1 and you get a golden name or some stupid crap like that. But yeah, do not make indie multiplayer. There's been so many stories of like, why didn't my game do well? So there's no players for it, especially like arena shooters, man. They're super dead, super dead. They've been super dead. Quake Champions dead, super dead, the deadest. You cannot compete, and there's no reason to. Rest in peace.
So I've been dominating questions here, Matt. So I wanted to give you you got something on the tip of your tongue right now?
I do actually. Just before the show started, I was listening to the New Blood podcast.
We got to do another one of those. We keep meaning to, but we suck at that. At making.
It was really good. It was really good.
Thank you.
I mean, you got to bring it back.
We've been talking about. We wanted to do a Half-Life episode, but I have to finish my playthrough of 2, and I have to play Alex. I haven't played Alex yet. I got my Rift S, and it's still in the box. You can tell how much I like VR. David has to finish his playthrough of Half-Life 2, and he has to finish Alex. I played through Black Mesa because we want all the thoughts to be fresh. And then we're going to get Tyler on from Valve News Network, who everybody has opinions on. And we're going to do a Half-Life episode, but we're also going to do another Doom episode because of the Ancient Gods. Every podcast will just be about Doom.
Yeah. I mean, once I saw it was about Doom, I understood why you were on our show today.
Yeah.
Ryan's a huge Doom fan.
Yeah, we had to do. We're going to do another Doom one, but we want to have Andrew and David on to talk about the music and stuff. But Andrew's just been. I'm like, hey, dude, you want to do podcasts this weekend? He's like, he's just so busy with, obviously with Part 2 music and shit like that. It's just nonstop. But we do want to do the one before the end of the year. Hopefully, maybe we'll do an end of the year roundup. We'll do like a little New Blood Awards, and we'll give Doom Eternal everyone. Unlike the Game Awards, which gave Doom Eternal no awards.
I was gonna ask you if you watched the Game Awards. What were your thoughts on those?
I mean, I was at work. I still have to go back and watch because I missed like all the reveals and stuff. I think Keeley does a great. We do. So me and Aaron are going to do a Yakuza episode, Controlser, because we're both about to 100% Yakuza 7. So Keeley does a great job. I mean, he pulled that show out of cable TV hell that it was in when it was on Spike, and basically built it into the Oscars. And Jeff's been doing this longer than anybody. He was a tester on Rise of the Triad when he was a kid in 1993. Jeff Keighley is like 800 years old. He's a Time Lord. He's been doing video game shit for longer than anyone. And I think he does a great job with the Game Awards, having to balance, getting all the, you got to bring the money in, so it's got to be reveals and ads like all over the place, because that's what pays for the show, and then try to get some awards in there, and it's hard, it's hard without making the show 4 hours long. As far as awards picks, it was a really tough year. I knew Doom Eternal wasn't going to get Game of the Year. I figured it was a shoo-in. I figured it was a shoo-in for action game, best action game. I think Tsushima won best art direction, right?
Tsushima won at least 2 or 3, I think.
Yeah, Ghost of Tsushima deserved fucking best art direction like by a fucking mile. I mean, even on PS4, that game is. I like how we're saying even on PS4, like it's so old at this point.
Piece of trash.
PS4. What is this? 2 generations ago? That game was gorgeous. I didn't see a lot of the other awards. Hades is apparently amazing. I haven't played it yet. I got so over top-down dungeon roguelike-y things like so many years ago, but apparently it's the best one ever. I mean, Supergiant has never made a bad game.
Yeah.
Everything they've ever put out is like fucking 10 out of 10 since Bastion. And that was the last game that I ever played, actually. I played Bastion back when it came out on Xbox 360, and I haven't played a single one of their games since, but they all look awesome. They're like the masters of that top-down isometric style, basically, because all their games have that look. So, I mean, Hades deserved everything it got. I mean, Last of Us 2, those aren't my kind of games. I don't like those movie games, where you're just kind of watching a movie and playing in between. There's a lot of gameplay in those games. They're not for me, those third-person Sony movie games, the Tomb Raiders, Last of Us 2, Uncharted.
We bemoan those almost every single week on the podcast. Like we understand the quality, obviously. There's so much to love, but it's like, it's not.
They're just not for me. I don't think they're bad. They're obviously not bad. Actually, I remember I tried to play the Uncharted games. I thought the shooting was horrendous. I'm like, wow, this is real. I love the platforming. But the thing that I really liked is I just liked watching it. Kind of like, can I just get a movie of all the cutscenes of like Sully and fucking Drake like shooting the shit about treasure like that?
Well, you're gonna get Mark Wahlberg as Sully in the movie here soon, so
that doesn't make any sense.
Tom Holland
and Mark Wahlberg.
I mean, whatever. I mean, I'm not a huge Uncharted fan, but like, what's his name from Firefly is literally right there.
Yeah, yeah.
Hey, Fillion.
Nathan Fillion's right there. He even made that fan film that was really, really good. Um, but yeah, I mean, those just not my type of games. But I mean, I think in order for a game to be Game of the Year, and this is just my opinion, it has to like be in the conversation all year. People were talking about. I remember like Breath of the Wild was, far and away the best game of 2017, and also I played that game all year because it took me like all year to get through it. And people were talking about it all year. This year people were talking. I mean, people were talking about Animal Crossing for a really long time. People were talking about Doom for a long time, mostly because of the difficulty conversation, but then also because they released DLC. But that's also kind of an awards tactic when you release stuff all year to keep it in the conversation.
Yeah.
And I feel like The Last of Us 2, for all its quality and everything, kind of just came and went in a matter of weeks. Same with stuff like Final Fantasy VII Remake, which was also amazing. Final Fantasy VII changed my life, and the remake I think deserves an award for just not being shit, for
Not
pulling it
sucking,
off.
yeah.
Like, holy shit! I mean,
Bit of a revolt.
I've got big reservations about where it's going because they've got the fucking the team from Kingdom Hearts working on it, and they're doing like alternate timelines and all that dumb shit that everybody hates from those games. And
Final Fantasy
putting it
7
into-
2 XD 1.4576.
Yeah, it's going there.
Yeah.
So I've got big reservations. But I understand that you can't just remake the base game because it would take like 5-6 episodes. That game was fucking enormous. People forget. I forget whole parts of Final Fantasy VII because of how big it is. There was parts of that game you could just chop off and nobody would care or remember. But yeah, I mean, awards are subjective. They do a good job with the with the jury, and they let some fans vote too. It's whatever. Every award show, I don't care if it's the Emmys or the Oscars or the Game Awards, you're always gonna get people going, "Yay!" or "Boo." That's the whole point.
DiCaprio
Right?
lost again?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Yeah. Oh no. So it's whatever. I'm glad we have a big, good award show for games that feels very. I mean, I loved going to the Game Awards every year, getting dressed up, taking a date, walking down the thing, seeing all the people shaking hands, acting like I'm fucking important or something. Seeing like Phil Spencer and Reggie and shit like that. I saw Reggie in the club last time we were
Gaming
at the Game
deserves its
Awards.
night.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's cool that Keeley's built up, this big Oscar-like show for games. So I'm about it, and also like big reveals, right? It's the awards are one thing, but people tune into the Game Awards for the big dick reveals, and there's a lot of them, and I haven't even seen a bunch yet. I missed a bunch of them, so I'm gonna go back and watch that at some point. But yeah, I mean, I'm all about the Game Awards. I mean, it's better than the shit we used to have for games. There was some, back when we didn't have the Game Awards. There's some smaller ones that are good. Dice Awards. I'm a member of the Academy. I go to those, and those are voted on by other industry professionals, which is cool. Golden Joysticks, which is I think 100% fan voting, but that makes it mostly a popularity contest. People say that the fans should pick like the Game Awards, or like, oh, it should be mostly fan voting. I'm like, no, because then it's just a popularity contest.
Then
and
it will
it's
be
just
The Last of Us 2 winning
then
everything.
yeah,
Or
then it's
Among
just
Us.
yeah, then it's just whoever has the biggest community and can tweet the most is gonna win the
Fortnite
fucking
Game of the
awards.
Year again.
Yeah.
Yeah, people
Five
were
years
like,
in a
why?
row.
People were like, why didn't Doom Eternal get more of the fan vote? I'm like, because Doom Eternal players are like old.
We're all
and,
40
like,
years
working-
old.
they're like working jobs and shit. They don't know how to fucking. They can't work. They're on their riding mower. They don't know how to work.
I'm on AOL Instant Messenger talking to my uncle over here. I don't know.
That's right.
Yeah, and I mean, and all the people crying about Last of Us, like it's a rig. That game doesn't have any fans. Like, do you know how many copies it sold? Like, are you ready? Like,
Sony
people
fans are
love-
diehard.
Yeah, and like it's huge. Just because of the people that you interact with on Twitter think it's a shitty game doesn't make it a shitty game or a not popular game. It's still it's one of the biggest franchises in the world for a reason. I think the whole fucking zombie apocalypse thing is so dead. But like games like The Last of Us and stuff like fucking The Walking Dead is still like a huge franchise. They still announce new Walking Dead shit like every other week. And that has jumped the shark fucking decades ago. I am so sick of The Walking Dead. When I see something that has to do with The Walking Dead, I immediately turn it off. I'm like, I am over it. I am done with zombies. But like zombie games, even it's like World War Z sold like 12 million copies, and I'm like, really?
Norman Reedus in the next New Blood game. You guys heard it here first.
Yeah.
Sure. Like yeah, man, zombie shit is just it's still so popular, even like 10 years after DayZ and all that stuff. It's crazy.
That you mentioned Final Fantasy VII, and it reminded me of a hilarious
Yeah.
PAX East story that Matt is the star of.
Oh,
So
God.
at PAX East this past year, you remember the Final Fantasy VII booth? It was huge. It was the biggest booth by far at PAX East this past year, and Matt was just walking around filming at PAX East, just getting just B-roll basically, filming tons of stuff. But there was
you can't film.
You can't film at the Final Fantasy VII booth, and they started screaming at him for filming it from like 100 yards away.
Oh no!
You would have thought somebody was getting shot. They're rushing me.
I really miss. I saw they announced PAX East for like June this coming year. That's gonna be interesting.
Who knows? I'm not planning anything until COVID's over.
Yeah. We actually had one of our listeners, we made a call for questions, and he asked he's one of our regular listeners, and he asked a very specific question I wanted to ask you. And that was about maximum action. You had mentioned that, it didn't pan out the way that both parties wanted it to. And I know probably you want to be careful about what you say or whatever, or maybe not. You're a pretty forthcoming guy. But what happened there? Because I played it at PAX East in your booth, and
Yeah, I mean it was coming along great, but I think as time went on, there started to become a disconnect between what we wanted to do and what George wanted to do, and he was never really vocal about it. So I think when the time came, I think he just wanted to split. It was his idea to split, and he was like, "Hey, I don't want to. I'd like out of my contract. I'd like to, and we were like, "Yeah, sure." I think it was, with like we say with New Blood, it's everybody's kind of one big family and stuff, and it was Maximum Action always kind of like Tonight We Riot felt like it was on the outside of that, where all these other games felt like New Blood games, and there's a lot of cross pollination. Maximum Action was like very much it felt like its own separate thing. It didn't really feel as much like a New Blood game, and I think the more we tried to make it a New Blood game, by adding New Blood characters and New Blood levels, and we had a bunch of people like the Samansky brothers were working on it. We had a UI, we had like 4 other people working on it, because we were trying to get it to that same level of as the other New Blood games. Make it just as popular, make the reviews just as good. And I think the more we tried to do that, the more George felt like it wasn't his game anymore, which is fair. He never really communicated that to us, but that was just kind of the feeling we got. So when he said that he wanted to, take it in another direction and, get out of his contract, we understood. And we were like, listen, we did a lot of work on the game. We sold a ton of copies. We got the reviews up really high. We were making a banging soundtrack. I made a whole synthwave album. I'm still working on Hunter with that album, but it just we figured it would be like, it's it was like a lesson learned, right? Like, when we bring somebody into New Blood, it really has to be a good fit. They've got to be on the same page with all of us. It can't just be us working on somebody else's game, right? It has to be all of us working together on these games. And we're so busy with so much other stuff. It was just like, yeah, whatever. It's freed up. Johnny Samansky was basically spending all his time working on Maximum Action, and we were able to put him on another project, and now he's working full time on a Dread XP game. So Johnny's been freed up to do stuff. Hunter was able to, do music for Unfortunate Spacemen. David, that obviously freed him up to spend more time on Gloomwood and his personal projects. But yeah, it's always a bummer when you put work into something and it doesn't pan out the same way it was with Tonight We Riot. It was, again, it just, it didn't feel like it was, part of the New Blood family or the New Blood catalog, right? And I think the more we tried to, same thing with Tonight We Riot, the more we tried to make it a New Blood game, the less it felt like their game. Especially with Tonight We Riot being so political and stuff, and us trying to be like, oh, maybe don't be so communist, and they'd be like, oh, but that's our thing, and then we'd be like, ah. So we at the same that the game ended up coming out and doing well. They got a publisher, Means TV, like a super socialist YouTube channel, and we don't care. People can have whatever politics they want. We try to stay pretty apolitical at New Blood, but and they again ended up coming out. I helped get them their own Nintendo account, so they got out on Switch. They came out on on Steam, and now they're working on new stuff. And the same thing with Maximum Action. Like George is free to go and do whatever he wants with his game. I mean, it's his game. So yeah, I mean, sometimes shit work out, and sometimes it don't. It be like that sometimes. Like it's always a bummer, but yeah, it is what it is. And we've got it's there's so much other shit that we're working on. So it's really, it's everything is a blessing and a curse. It
Yeah.
it sucks when you gotta part ways with a game that you've been working on or people that you've been working on. But if it frees you up to take on new stuff or do more work with other people, then it's all good. Especially because the Maximum Action thing literally freed us up to bring in Fallen Aces because we had like no room for any other games, and we had been talking to Trey for a long time, but because we wanted to bring him in, but like we're so busy, we've got so much stuff. Maximum Action took a lot of development time because it was really still very early access. But so we didn't have, and then once we realized we weren't going to be working on that anytime, we're like, yo, we can work on Fallen Aces now. We can bring Trey in. So that there's always a silver lining with
Mhm.
stuff, I think. So yeah.
So I've only got like one more question, probably. Matt, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, he's answered a bunch of my questions just through other questions. So yeah, I'm pretty good.
Okay. So I got two more probably. So we focused almost entirely on New Blood, but you also work for Rocket Works, and just tell me a little bit about your role there, because it's probably much different than your role in New Blood. I would assume. I mean, it's a different scope company. You know. So if you just want to talk about what you do at Rocket
Yeah,
Works.
so at Rocket Works, I am the senior director of fucking whatever. I came down here. So my buddy Aaron, who I founded New Blood with, ended up I helped him get the job with Dean Hall down here at Rocket Works. He's from New Zealand. He's a Kiwi. And he was working there for like 3-4 years, and they ended up working on like a AA co-op shooter. That has now been canceled. Dean canceled my game. It's not my game. I was just the producer on it. I was on it for like 3 months. And Aaron was like, "Hey man, if we kind of need a producer on this thing, you want to come down to New Zealand and work with me again at Rocket Works?" And I started talking to Dean. I had known Dean from some events and stuff, and they offered me a job, and I was like, "Shit, yeah, I'll move to New Zealand." And I moved down here, and I was hired mostly to be the executive producer on this co-op shooter called Union, now canceled. It was in some papers. We haven't released anything from it, but it was pretty cool. It had like cyborg ninjas that did like Vanquish sliding, and it was
Oh, I
a
love
bit
it
like,
already.
yeah, it was a bit like Destiny, co-op loot shoot. And it was really getting there, but it was over time and over budget, and Dean came in and fucking so my game got canceled, and then a bunch of people got fired, and then a bunch of people quit. And then while that was happening, Dean went and opened the second studio in Auckland with like the biggest office in Auckland, and announced Icarus, their new survival game. The Arc Killer, the big, Dean's new big dick survival game. I said, I don't want anything to do with that. I don't want AAA. I don't like Auckland. I want to stay down here in Dunedin. So he's like, all right, you can run the Dunedin studio as like an indie studio. And basically, we work on Stationeers and the ports of the Out of Ammo VR games and a couple of unannounced things. So yeah, I kind of run Rocket Works Dunedin as like a little indie studio now. And then advise on marketing and PR and social and stuff for all the other greater Rocket Works stuff. They basically pay me to be Dave Oshry of Rocket Works, so they can say, "Hey, Dave Oshry works here," and people go, "Oh shit, I know that guy from Dusk." Um, it's been a weird year, because the whole point of me coming down here was like, can I produce a 40-person, shooter? Can I apply the lessons from New Blood to a full team working on a AA shooter game? And we were doing really good, and then it got canceled, and now I just do more indie game producing. So I'm kind of just doing the same thing I do at New Blood, but for Rocket Works. And yeah, living down here is great. It's Dunedin's really coming up, the city I live in. We just got a big investment from the government. They started a program called Code. They're going to be investing $10 million into indie games and productions here in Dunedin, New Zealand. So I'm not saying move here, fuck off, we're full. But hopefully, a bunch of new indies and startups get started down here in the South Island of Dunedin, because everybody talks, oh, New Zealand, ooh, Auckland, Wellington. I'm like, South Island's pretty all right. You've seen my view. It's not bad, and it's affordable, unlike Auckland, where the average house price is now $1 million NZD, which is like, that's like 600K US, which is still a fuck ton to live on an island in the middle of nowhere. We don't have Amazon. You can't. You order some shit and it gets here in like 2 months. For real, that's the one thing I miss about the States is like, if you want something, you just order it or get it, or Amazon delivers it next day. When you live on an island near Antarctica, there's no Amazon. Amazon drones don't come here. So like, I'll order shit sometimes, and it shows up like 2 months later, and I'm like, oh, I forgot I ordered.
I bought this.
Yeah, every day is Christmas when you live in New Zealand, and you never know if the mail's gonna make it or not. Because I don't just live in New Zealand; I live in rural New Zealand. I live a half hour outside of town on the beach, so it's like not only do I live on an island in the middle of nowhere, I live like, far away on an island in the middle of nowhere. But yeah, it's lovely here. The people are cool, culture's great, food's amazing, coffee's the best in the world. But fuck off, we're full. I'm the last one. No other American video game developers are allowed to come here, just me.
All right, so we got one more very important question. We've been talking about this for probably 5 or 6 episodes out of the podcast in a row, and we really needed to ask you this. So it's a pretty straightforward question, but you can elaborate on your answer if you want. It is, do you agree or disagree that our listeners should avoid anything starring or written or performed by Will Smith?
Why? Will Smith is the best. Who doesn't like
So
Will
you disagree.
Smith?
So you disagree.
Yes.
Okay.
Who doesn't like Men in Black or The Fresh Prince?
The Fresh Prince, yeah.
Or Wild Wild West? Maybe not.
Well, you're going back 20 years now, though.
Or Independence Day? Hello?
Right. But,
Independence Day is a perfect movie. I could do an entire podcast just about how Independence Day is literally a perfect film.
What's your favorite song by Will Smith?
Oh man, Parents Just Don't Understand. Probably, but that's old Will Smith.
Going way back.
What was the question you posed to me? Matt, was it Getting Jiggy with It, or what was the other one?
I can't remember.
There was like,
Miami.
No, Miami. That one was actually that one was not in the question, but I forgot. It was like 3 Will Smith songs. He asked me to rank my favorite, and I was like, "This is impossible. Like, this is just, I can't do this." Summertime is classic, Star says.
Yeah, there we go.
Smith don't have to cuss in his raps to sell records. Well, I do, so fuck him and fuck you too.
There you go. Nobody else will remember that either. That's
fucking, that was old Eminem, old Will Smith. I'm old, all right?
So are we. How old are you anyway?
Getting there. Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
How old do you think I am?
Mid-30s. We're in our mid-30s.
Yeah, I was gonna say 35.
Yeah, I am 36.
Yeah.
Hey.
We're 33, so.
Yeah, we old.
During the Game Awards, I was streaming it and they revealed like the Perfect Dark reboot, and I was like, "Oh, this is so awesome!" Then I'm like, "And none of you even know what the hell this is." Like,
yeah,
playing a shooter with one joystick back in the day.
I mean, that's why. I mean, we like. That's why we like. I mean, the reason people ask if we do like these retro spiritual successors for like we do it because it's trendy or whatever. It's like, no, we're making games that we want to play. Like, we're making games that are spiritual successors to the games that we like to play when we were younger, because those are the games we like to play, and nobody else is fucking doing it, so we gotta make them ourselves. Nobody wants to make a new Thief game, we'll make a new fucking Thief game. Nobody wants to make new Quake-like shooters, we'll make new Quake-like shooters. Nobody wants to make retro horror games, we will. Nobody wants to make a car combat game, fuck it, I guess we'll make a car combat game, because we can, and because we do well enough at it that it allows us to keep making the next one, and that's good enough for me. If we don't, like, we say we hate money, right? It's because like we're not chasing a buck, we're just we're having fun, and if we're having fun and doing well enough that we could keep doing this, then like it's good enough for me, man.
If you can make cool stuff and pay your own salaries and make a living, then great.
Living the dream.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. All right. Well, I think that about wraps us up. I think we're going to are we going to do the full normal episode after this, Matt, or what do you want to do?
Yeah, I mean, if you want, we can
yeah, we'll do that. But Dave, we'll let you off the hook, so you don't have to give us any more of your time. But
No worries.
really appreciate you coming on the show. Thanks to everybody in chat who I'm sure are from the the New Blood community for joining us and throwing in your thoughts. So Dave, seriously, thanks a lot. We'll be looking forward to all the good New Blood stuff coming in 2021, and we'll be thinking about moving to New Zealand when you're no longer there, and we'll be allowed to move there because you don't want us there now. So
Yeah. When
All
space
good,
opens
guys.
up.
All right. Thanks for having
all
me.
right, thanks,
Yep.
Dave. Have a good
All
one.
right.
Cheers.
Take it easy.
All right, so we
That
are
was
going.
fun.